Hi, Yasmin. How are you?
Hi, Curtis. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. You look so good today.
Thank you. So do you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're looking fabulous.
um,
Yasmin's looking beautiful as usual, and you're looking so handsome as usual.
Thank you. Right back at you. You
How
just
are you,
start.
Yasmin?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
I'm still trying to get used to Zoom, so.
We all are trying to get used to Zoom.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our Zoom call today for our live interview with the incredible Yasmin El Shazly. Hello, Yasmin.
Hello, Curtis. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yasmin is in a very good mood. Her football team won, so well done.
Yeah, we're all very happy. But both Egyptian teams, so I wouldn't have been heartbroken if the other team had won either.
Oh, good, good,
I'm more of a national team fan.
good viewpoint. So, for those of you who don't know who Yasmin is an incredibly accomplished Egyptologist. She is an author and a pretty all-round amazing lady. She has worked at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, where she was head of documentation um, and collections management. She has also taught courses at the American University in Cairo, and she is deputy director of the American Research Center in Egypt. Yasmin is also a female empowerment speaker, having done a TED Talk, and she's also appeared in many of our favorite documentaries. So, a lot of us feel like we know Yasmin already, but I wanted to get to know Yasmin a little better. So, Yasmin, if it's okay, I'd like to ask you a couple questions to start with, just about yourself.
Sure, go ahead. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Thank you for joining. And I forgot to mention our cultural ambassador. So, Yasmin, I would like to please know a question you've probably been asked a million times, but how did you get interested in history
Yeah.
and Egyptology? Was it always your passion?
Okay, I'm not one of those Egyptologists who fell in love with ancient Egypt at the age of 3. What happened was, my dad's a diplomat, so I grew up in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And when you take what you have for granted. So I took my history for granted until I went to Denmark. I went to high school in Denmark. And I found out that the Danes knew much more about ancient Egypt than I did. So I got more interested in ancient Egypt. And then Dr. Zahi Hawass came to give a lecture at the embassy.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I decided I wanted to be an Egyptologist. And ever since, he's been a great mentor, he and my other professors. And I haven't regretted it since. I've never regretted becoming an Egyptologist.
Okay, so what was it in Denmark that really sparked your interest?
Well, first of all, I told you the Danes knew more about ancient Egypt than I did, and that really bothered me. And I was doing international baccalaureate then, so I decided, and one of my subjects was art. So my art project, the theme was ancient Egypt. So I did a lot of research about ancient Egyptian art. And I wrote my extended essay about the art of Amarna. So that's how I got very interested in ancient Egyptian history and art.
Can you speak Danish?
No, no. Everybody in Denmark spoke English, so I didn't really have to learn it.
Oh, good, good. And how long did you stay in Denmark for?
I stayed there for 2 years, and then I went back to Egypt to go to university.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was for high school. But
Yes.
how was it growing up in Cairo? I mean, did they teach you about history in school? Um, and what do you think about people who don't seem to see Egypt's heritage on the scale that it is in their own country?
Well, as I told you, I didn't really grow up in Egypt. I grew up in different parts of the world. But when I was in Egypt, like I think it was grade 4, I studied ancient Egyptian history at school. And the problem is that usually the curriculum at school is very dry. So I would have never, I would have never decided to become an Egyptologist had I continued to study ancient Egyptian history that way. But because it's usually about, wars and kings and who, the way it's written is very dry. And as you can tell from my research, I'm more interested in ordinary people. Anyway, so
Ordinary people
and
that actually tell us a lot about how things
yes,
were.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, they're not really ordinary, but I'm less interested in royalty than I am in the non-royal. But in Egypt, I think it's a problem everywhere in the world. Wherever you go, people take their own history for granted. They're not very interested in their own history. I taught at AUC, and the number of students who've never been to Giza was just, shocking.
Yeah.
And it's because you always think you'll go later. You can go later. You don't have to go now.
Yeah.
But what I tell them is that, yeah, they need to learn more about their own history because it is incredibly fascinating, and the whole world is impressed by our history. That's why, they really should learn more about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's Dr. Hawass who said Egypt's history is not just Egypt's history, it's everybody's history. So
It's true.
yeah,
That's true. It's everybody's history, but the people living in Egypt really have are more. I think they have more of a responsibility to preserve it, even though the whole world is responsible for its preservation. But the fact that the monuments are in Egypt makes us more responsible for the preservation of the monuments.
yeah. I had a friend of mine, and his daughter. She had only gone to the pyramids at Giza when she turned 18 a couple years ago, and they live in Giza, 1 block away from the pyramids. And
That's really incredible. Yeah,
and
but I'm not surprised.
yeah, she told me she was not interested in the history, and then when she went to the pyramids, now she's so into it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think it is great that a lot more people in Egypt are paying attention to their history.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's I think also, the fact that it's been in the media a lot recently with different discoveries being made, and the gem and all the different museums that are opening. So it's constantly in the media, and people are getting more and more interested,
yeah.
which is a very good thing.
It's excellent. So
Because it's the people who preserve their own the monuments. So if they value the monuments and they have a sense of belonging, feel a sense of belonging to this history, they will never hurt it. They will never damage it.
exactly, exactly. That's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very profound. Was being a born Egyptian helpful in growing your career in Egyptology?
Of course, because well, I can't say that for everyone because I'm lucky. I was very lucky, but there are more jobs in Egyptology in Egypt than there are in other parts of the world. People, when they graduate with a degree in Egyptology, find it very difficult to find a job. It's easier if you're Egyptian and living in Egypt. The monuments are here. But I know there are people who aren't so lucky, Egyptians who weren't able to find a stable job. So I have been very lucky, but it's still easier. And living in Egypt makes it also easier. Doing your research becomes easier. It's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like I look at myself and I wish that I was able to speak Arabic so that I could learn more about the Arab explorers who went to Egypt in the 1800s, 1700s, because I think their stories are probably quite interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's also the fact, of course, I didn't mention the fact that I speak Arabic makes it much easier for me to work in Egypt. So that's another plus.
Yeah. So fast forward now past your studies to you working at the museum in Cairo, the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. You held a very high role at the museum. How did that come about, and what was that experience like? What was an average day of Yasmin El Shazly like?
Okay, I'll tell you, when I finished my PhD, well, before I finished my PhD, I came to Egypt on vacation, and Dr. Zahi Hawes was the head of the SCA at that time. And he asked me if I made the oath, and I asked him, what oath?
Yeah, what oath?
And the oath was that I would come back to Egypt, work for the SCA, and help 3 Egyptians pursue, their graduate studies, go to grad school abroad. Okay? So I made that oath. And even though at first I didn't want to work at the SCA, but I did. I kept my promise, and he wanted me to work at the Egyptian Museum. There was a new project, the registrar's training project, and it was an RC project to build a database for the Egyptian Museum and to create the first registrar's department in a museum in Egypt. And I'm very grateful that I started my career in this office, because it was an amazing experience. You learn so much about the objects. I really, I love the Egyptian Museum so much. I'm very attached to it. And being there every day was really a blessing. My daily work was, usually I was stuck in an office in the basement of the Egyptian Museum, sitting, in front of a computer, checking information about the different objects, checking their locations, things like that. And of course,
come across something and you were like, oh my goodness, this needs to go out on display or something like that?
Yes, of course, many times. And you also discover things that, a statue where you have a part of the statues in the Egyptian Museum and another part is in another museum in Egypt, and you have to write a memo and ask if the 2 halves could be joined, the 2 parts of the statue could be joined at the Egyptian Museum, preferably. But I'm biased, of course. So you discover so many fascinating things while doing this work, and I was very lucky.
Yeah. It sounds like a very interesting kind of job. I mean, was it challenging though? Did you ever think, wow, I'm sitting all day at the computer, I would prefer to be out doing something else? Or how was that?
Well, yeah, of course, but you feel that you're in front of the thing is, you become so busy you have all this information about all these objects, and then you regret that you haven't published that much.
Yeah.
You have all this information accessible to you, and it's just because it's there, you always think, okay, I'll write about this later. But I could have published so much more if I had really,
if you had the time.
I don't know, made more of a, if I had more time and really made more of an effort.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, I wish that you had, because we need to know about these pieces that are all over the place that we want to put together.
Yeah, but the biggest challenge, of course, was when the museum was looted in 2011.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How did that go? I mean, recovering pieces, that must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking because I was a member of the committee that went into the museum, the first committee to enter the museum after the looting. So we saw like Tut objects lying on the ground, broken, and it was just heartbreaking. And we had to assess the damage. And we worked with the curators who came up with lists of their missing objects, and these lists were given to our department so that we could update the database, and we had to produce lists from the database of these missing objects with photographs and dimensions and all sorts of information, and give them to the authorities, the different authorities, national and international. And I was interrogated actually about the looting as a witness, but it was scary, right? And you know, it was my first time to be interrogated that way, so it was kind of scary. There was also people were very active on Twitter at that time, all over the world, people who were interested in Egypt. And I was not used to being, now I realize that people say what they want to say. They could attack you. You don't have to pay attention to it. You could just ignore it. But back then, when people attacked the Egyptian Museum and its staff, and started saying that the staff of the Egyptian Museum was hiding something, or it was an inside job, and all these sorts of things, and why were they not producing the lists fast enough? Why did it take them that long? They were hiding something. That made me really angry and very stressed. And I used to reply and try to defend the staff of the Egyptian Museum, which was not the right thing to do because people would attack back and it was very stressful. Yeah. But the thing is that people did not realize that when a museum is looted, the Egyptian Museum, we could not just go inside and figure out what's missing in one day, because some objects were, some objects were destroyed, some objects were thrown in the trash can. Some objects were found in the roof, some objects were found in the garden. We had to search every inch of the museum to be able to come up with a list of missing objects, because objects were not necessarily missing. They could be somewhere in the museum that we haven't found them yet. Yeah. So it took us some time, and we couldn't enter the museum alone. We were escorted by commandos, and the whole group of like 10 people had to walk around the museum together. So I couldn't just go, and I didn't have access to the database. I couldn't go to my office in the basement. So it was a very slow process. Yeah, it made it very, very hard, very slow, and it took us some time. So we weren't hiding anything. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I believe actually all the pieces were recovered, I believe. So.
Well, not all the pieces, but a lot of them.
Okay. Well, anyway, you guys did the best you could, so very well done. Did seeing certain objects every day at work, did that have like a negative effect on you? Like, for example, walking past something, going, oh my gosh, I have to see this statue again today.
No. No, actually, the more you look at the pieces, the more you admire them, the more you discover about them. So you never get sick and tired of looking at these ever.
Yeah, yeah. Have you looked through the entire Egyptian museum? I mean, I've spent 7 hours there the one day, and I just did one corner.
Yeah, no, you every day whenever I go to the Egyptian museum, I discover something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Even though I worked there since I think I started working there 2008 until I worked there for like 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
And I still find things that I've never seen before.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. But of course, now the collection is going to be smaller and easier to to navigate.
Exactly, exactly. That was actually what I wanted to also pick your brain about, was the gem. How do you feel about the gem? I mean, the old museum is very historic in its own right.
Yeah. Of course, the gem is an incredible project, but I will always love the Egyptian Museum in Cairo more than the gem, even though the gem is incredible, impressive. Everybody's going to love the gem, I'm sure, and Tut's going to be there, the whole collection. But the Egyptian Museum, I don't know, it has this special place in my heart, and it's very. It's like you're breathing history when you walk into that building. I think it's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And I hope that people continue to visit after the gem opens.
I'm sure they will. I believe they're going to bring some pieces up from the basement and put them on display, so there's going to be new things for us to see.
Yes, and the old things are pretty amazing. There are some of the the masterpieces are still going to be there.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, for example, Tut's mask, that must probably going to be a very stressful move. I mean, that is the icon of Egypt. You can't damage that.
Yeah. No, of course not. And I know they're going to be very careful about that. Don't worry.
Yeah, I get so stressed thinking about it. So I don't know how the actual people working there will feel.
Yeah. No, it is stressful, but it's always stressful when you move objects around, but objects move every day, all over the world.
Exactly. They've lasted so long. They'll last a little longer.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. But you have also published several academic publications, one in particular on ancient ancestor worship at Deir El Medina. So what was it about that specific time in history that interested you?
Well, I mentioned at the beginning of the interview that I am very interested in the non-royal people. So Deir El Medina has always been fascinating to me because it's the village that housed the workmen who built the tombs in the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens. And it's the place that yielded the most information we have about daily life in ancient Egypt. Yeah. So I wanted to do something related to Deir El Medina. And in terms of private religion, one thing that was very visible there was the veneration of the private and the royal ancestors. Initially, my dissertation was going to be about ancestor worship in general in Deir El Medina, but it turned out to be a very big topic. So I had to narrow it down to royal ancestor worship at Deir El Medina.
Yeah.
Because Amenhotep I and Ahmos Nefertari were depicted in many of the tombs at Deir El Medina, and on stele and on offering tables, and
they've been dead for a couple hundred years. They were still shown.
Yeah. Yes. And they're not only Amenhotep I and his mother, but also other members of that line of royal. And even people like Nebhepetram and Tuhotep, who was
even before.
dead long ago.
But I mean, even Deir El Medina, it does give us an insight into everyday life, but they're not exactly everyday people at Deir El Medina. They are sort of like on a higher level.
Yes, and it was a very special kind of village. It wasn't the average village. It was a very special kind of community of skilled artists and literate members of the community. You know, literacy wasn't very high in ancient Egypt, but in Deir el-Medina it was high. So it wasn't very representative of a typical community in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of information from that village, a lot of written texts, a lot of all sorts of documents from Deir el-Medina. So that's why it's very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
So it does give us some idea about daily life, even though the community was not a typical community.
Yeah, yeah. But as we mentioned now, Amenhotep I and Ahmos Nefertari, not to be confused with Nefertari, wife of Ramses, they were very much venerated and extremely important in the workman's village. Was it only because of expelling the Hyksos, or were there other factors that came into play?
Well, that's a difficult question because, well, someone like Cherny said that it's because Amenhotep I established the community at Deir el-Medina. The problem is that we have no evidence that Deir el-Medina was established under Amenhotep I, because the first evidence we have dates from Thutmose I, his successor.
Yes.
So, but he was the first king who was probably, we don't even know where he was buried for sure, Amenhotep I, that's another problem. But he was probably the first king of a unified Egypt after, you know, an intermediate period, who was buried probably in the Theban necropolis somewhere. Yeah. So that may have been why, one reason why he was venerated. And there was, unfortunately, we don't know where his tomb is. There are several candidates, but we're not sure. And there was a temple where he, at Menset in Rabu Naga, where he and his mother were venerated. Maybe that's one of the reasons where they're, and another problem is that actually evidence for their veneration, the first evidence comes from outside of Deir el-Medina.
Really?
So there's earlier evidence in Dra Abu Naga, for example.
Okay.
So
it's around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the earliest evidence in Deir el-Medina probably, well, most of the evidence comes from the reign of Ramses II.
Yes.
But there may be evidence from like the reign of Hatshepsut or Thutmose III, but that's probably from outside Deir el-Medina. But the objects that are dated to that reign are not certain. So we're not very sure what date the earliest evidence from Deir el-Medina is, but most of the evidence comes from the reign of Ramses II.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen many stela of Ramses standing in front of Ahmos Nefertari and Amenhotep I, even though there was hundreds of years between them. Yeah. So that must have, for people who just look at it to start with, it must be quite confusing, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, it is, because people can, it is, you see Ramses the second and you see an earlier king and his mother. Yeah, it can be confusing. And sometimes you see a stela that has Amenhotep I and Ahmos Nefertari, but doesn't have Ramses II, but it doesn't date to the reign of Amenhotep I and Ahmos Nefertari. You can tell, there are other dating criteria that tell you that it's a later piece.
Yeah, yeah. If you lived at Deir El Medina, under which pharaoh would you have lived?
Ramses II.
Good
I think
answer.
it was a cool.
Good answer.
I know you like Ramses II.
How did you know?
I watched your interview with Salima.
Okay. Why do you like Ramses? Tell me, I need to know.
Well, no, I like the period of Ramses II. It's interesting. Like most of the material I studied dated to the reign of Ramses II. So for me, it was an interesting period, an interesting time period. But I do agree that he usurped other people's monuments, and yeah, he did things that weren't so nice. But but he was his period was very interesting.
Ah, okay. So we know that the statue of Amenhotep I used to be carried around Deir El Medina once a year for the festival, and people would jump out and ask the statue questions. If you had to ask the statue a question, what would it be?
What would it be? That's very difficult. When would COVID end?
That's a good one.
Well, you can't really ask that because the statue won't reply. It has to be a yes or no question.
Yeah.
So I will probably ask, will it end soon or not?
Yes, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the statue was carried around probably more than once a year, different festivals.
Okay, so it wasn't just a once a year thing.
No.
Yeah. No. It must have been quite an interesting time. I mean, was it the statue or was it just the priests answering the question? I mean, when someone jumps out and says, "Did you sleep with my wife?" That must have been very scary, not knowing what the statue's going to do.
You know, we don't know exactly how the priests decide what they wanted the answer to be, or I personally think it was something that was random, that was not, I don't know how it was done, but I think that it was something that was kind of random, that they felt that God decided was really answering the question, not the priests.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you've got 6 priests holding onto a pole, you all sort of have to have a unanimous idea to lift and answer that question.
Well, it depends on what kind of gesture they made. So if they moved in one direction, maybe they did not really decide which direction it would be. So if more people moved towards the left, then that's the way the statue would move.
Yeah, yeah. So if you lived in ancient times, would you have kept your own hair or worn a wig?
Both. I would have kept my hair and worn a wig. I wouldn't have shaved my head, that's for sure.
Okay, okay. Which wig would it
be? Every once in a while. I don't know. Yeah. I would wear different.
Okay, one for every day of the week.
Yeah, like sometimes I would wear my hair, sometimes I would be in the mood to wear a wig, so why not? But I would not have shaved my hair.
Oh, okay, okay. So when we find your mummy in a couple thousand years, you'll have hair like green tea.
Yes, hopefully.
What is the strangest thing that has happened to you while shooting a documentary? I mean, we've seen you in quite a few. What's the strangest thing?
Well, I think the documentaries were kind of straightforward. Nothing strange really happened. I can tell you a strange thing that happened when we were excavating. Yeah. When I graduated from AUC, I worked for a year at Giza, and we were excavating tombs south of the Pyramid of Menkaura. And there was this spot inside the tomb where I used to sit every day and have my tea. And then I was absent one day, and they decided to excavate under that place, that spot where I was every day sitting, where I was sitting every day. And they found a woman, the body of a woman who had been murdered 15 years ago. Back then, it was 15 years ago.
Oh,
So I used to sit every day over that corpse.
Oh my God. That is,
Yeah, so that was, yeah.
that is insane.
Yeah, yeah. And then the following day when I went there, the workmen were all absent because they were scared. So they didn't show up to work that day.
As long as they didn't think you did it, it's fine.
Yeah, maybe they did because I was absent.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So, but I mean, just thinking about finding a corpse there is one thing, but you had your tea inside a tomb. We say that like it's quite
Yeah.
normal because, you know, we're Egyptologists, but it's not actually that normal to sit in a tomb and have your tea. How did that feel?
No. Well, for me, it felt normal, but I guess it's not. Archaeologists can be weird.
Exactly. We like looking at dead things and old things, things that are, yeah, different. What has been the highlight of your career so far?
Well, that's a difficult question. Well, of course, publishing my first book, and hopefully not my last. We're working. We're working as a team on we're 5 editors working on a book now. But yeah, here I have it with me. That's what my biggest accomplishment so far. And of course, things that I'm proud of are like my work at the Egyptian Museum, where I helped in the process of retrieving objects that had been stolen after the revolution,
Yeah.
and helping with the Red List. The International Council of Museums produced a Red List for Egypt that I also was one of the people who worked on that.
Yeah.
That's something I was very proud of as well.
Yeah.
And after that, when I was at the ministry working on in international cooperation and international organizations working on UNESCO files of, you know, World Heritage files was also something I was very happy and proud of.
Yeah. But you said your dad was also a politician. So for you working at the SCA, sort of in politics, you also were the cultural ambassador. How did he feel about that?
Well, yeah, it actually, he helped me a lot because I used to ask for his advice in many things, my dad. And yes, I think being the daughter of a diplomat really, I think my personality fit well with this position at the ministry, the international cooperation, and yeah.
Yeah. You're also the deputy director at the American Research Center. What does that involve?
Well, I'm a deputy director for research and programs, and I'm loving it. It's a great position to have. We're working on different programs for RC. We're working on a conference. I don't know if I should say what it's about before we publish the call for papers. So I'm not sure, so I won't say anything. But
you can tell us.
It's a great place. And it's recorded and it's going to be on YouTube, right? I believe you. So yeah, you'll find out soon. And you can guess, but I won't tell you if it's right or wrong. Anyway, and we're working on different programs and virtual lectures, and it's a lovely place to be, and I feel like I'm helping Egyptian heritage through RC. I'm learning new things. I'm working with a great team. I'm enjoying it very much.
Yeah. Well, it's good to enjoy your work. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. definitely. You can't be an Egyptologist and not enjoy your work because, you know, people aren't in it for the money, really.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
have to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, who inspires you?
Well, many people inspire me. Well, in terms of my professors inspired me, of course. My parents inspired me. My professors, of course, I told you that Dr. Zahi was the one who convinced me to become an Egyptologist. My professors at AUC, Dr. Salima Ikram and Dr. Faiza Heikal, they inspire me every day. Dr. Betsy Bryan at Hopkins and Dr. Richard Jasno at Hopkins, they inspire me. All my colleagues inspire me. Some of them are here today. I can see their names. They inspire me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a couple quick fire questions for you before we take some questions from the viewers. So are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Your favorite place in Egypt?
Deir El Medina.
It would be strange if it was anywhere else. Favorite artifact?
The unfinished quartzite head of Nefertiti at the Egyptian Museum. I like it more than the head you have behind you, although it's beautiful. Nefertiti, the bust of Nefertiti in Berlin is absolutely gorgeous, but I love the quartzite head at the Egyptian Museum very, very much.
Okay. This is actually the one from Berlin. I stole it and I'm planning to bring it back to Egypt.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's coming back sometime.
Okay. But you know, the head at the Egyptian Museum, there's, you know, when something is unfinished, you can imagine there's a lot of potential. You imagine how perfect it would have been had it been finished.
And it's interesting to see the process, I think.
Yes, of course. You learn by looking at it, how the artist worked, and you feel the human touch.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of people think, oh, it wasn't made by people. And you see that and you go, yes. Yeah. Favorite pharaoh?
That's a hard question. I don't know. Well, I like Hatshepsut. She was a pharaoh. She was a very cool pharaoh.
Yes. Yes. Also for women's rights and favorite queen?
Well, Nefertiti was pretty cool.
Tough but cool.
Tough but cool. That's why she's cool.
Yeah. Favorite place apart from Egypt?
Oh, all the places I've lived in. Because, you know, they contributed to my character. And I love all the places I've lived in.
Yeah. What is a discovery that you still want to see made?
The tomb of Amenhotep. It was venerated.
Yeah, we need to know what that tomb looked like. And my last question, well, second last. Who is your favorite everyday person from Deir El Medina and why?
Everyday person from Deir El Medina, who's my favorite one? I don't know how to answer that question. What's her name? The lady who disowned her, what's her name? I have to remember the name. The woman who wrote the will to disinherit her children who were not nice to her. What's her name? Anyone in the audience remember the name?
Lady Hell.
Lady.
I don't know.
I can't remember the name right now, but I'll write it for you as soon as I remember.
Okay, I do remember the story, and there was also a thing where her husband had to pay her every month with like clothing and things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was married to Khan Khopshep.
Yes, yes.
I
I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember the name.
can't remember the name. I don't know why, but Khan Khopshep was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very well educated, very well read, with a big library.
And the last question from me, what is the one piece of advice you will give to someone wanting to become an Egyptologist?
Use your imagination, because I feel that the problem is that people who want to be an Egyptologist, they get very depressed and demotivated when they can't find a job in academia. So they have to people should use their imagination, and because I think there's always something you can do with Egyptology that isn't necessarily academia.
Mhm.
That would be very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So I think using your imagination to do something that you love, even if it's not academia. And you can still do your academic work on the side, but if you don't find a job in a university, you can always do something else related to Egyptology. I know it's not easy and it's easier said than done, but there are other jobs out there that are not necessarily academia.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's a good way to put it. Yeah. So I think we shall open up for some questions from the audience. My mom's here and she actually has a question. She wants to know if you're going to be involved in the gem.
Well, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I'd like to help.
Yeah.
But yeah. I've been involved in the past.
Mhm. I think you would do a very good job. So.
Oh, thank
you. So I will open up for questions from the audience. Whoever has a question, unmute yourself and ask your question now.
I have a quick question, if I could talk.
Hi.
Sure.
Sorry, I'll put this out. We just have people now, so I have my mask on. Hi, I'm Marissa. It's very nice to meet you. Hi, Curtis. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Marissa. Nice to meet you too.
Hi. I see some familiar names. I have a question, but I live in New York City, right by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I'm a big advocate for tourism for Egypt because I do private tours of the Met collection, and I teach all about ancient Egypt to many people all over the country now. And I'd love to somehow get in touch with the ambassadors of, here in New York City, the Egyptian, the ambassadors, and if there's a way I could, we can partner where I can help them somehow with tourism and advertising Egypt for when Egypt is ready, I can maybe prime the potential visitors and tourists. And I don't know if you have any.
Great. Yeah, well, leave your contact. If you leave your contact, I can try to get you in touch.
Oh, thank you so much. I think that could be a lot of fun. Okay. Thank you. I'll contact you through Curtis. We'll figure something out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Marissa.
Thank you, Curtis.
Next question.
I have a question. Yes.
I've had three.
Hi. My name is Jihan, and I was in school with Yasmin's mother, but I'm one of those who at age 5 loved Egyptology and history of Egypt. And indeed the curriculum was dry. So I'm wondering if now you are making any effort to involve or inspire youth in learning about Egypt. Of course, ancient Egyptian history is your area, and it is the one that has the wealth of information around the world. But Egypt has gone through several other cultures as well. And I wonder if there is an effort, or be it in school or during the summer, or courses or things for Egyptians to learn about their history.
Well, I know that, at RC, we're thinking of of doing something for students at school to incorporate, to we're thinking of programs for children at school, but we still haven't really written something up yet, but we're thinking about it. But I know also the ministry, all the museums now, they have a community engagement department and a school. There's a children's museum at the Egyptian Museum. They have activities over the summer for children, and they try to integrate material in the museum into the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
so they are making a lot of effort in this area.
That's very good. Okay, thank you.
I've got a comment and a question.
Hi, Kevin.
Good day from Chicago. I'm sorry I'm in a hospital bed. I don't have COVID though. So hello, Curtis, and hello, Yasmin.
Hello.
I've been very much enjoying the Zoom here. It's been very boring. I'm recovering from a heart attack, so is what it is. But long story short, back to what I didn't catch her name, the former leader with the lovely modern art in the background. I really am also very passionate about re-inspiring youth to really delve into the history of Egypt and how relevant it is in really all the unanswered questions that we have. Oh, I just love the art. I'm an art dealer, so stunning. But what I'd like to comment, as a comment, I think what drew me in was, with a breath of fresh air, is Curtis. What he's contributing is so refreshing in a format of presenting things in a little bit more accessible and less dry way than we've seen over the past maybe 20 years. With the material and new material coming up. So Curtis, I just can't thank you enough for being such an engaging, interesting young host. I think that even putting together the Zoom meeting during this ridiculous pandemic is just lovely.
Oh.
So thank you for that. Yasmin, the question I have for you is, unfortunately, I've had a very busy couple of years. I'm actually in the midst of opening a new design studio in a Egyptian revival building built in the 20s here in Chicago. Lovely building with the Italian terracotta facade. It's original intact. But the question I have is, as far as the new excavations go and what's kind of being found for new material, what's exciting you the most, Yasmin, as far as what's kind of up and coming? And I'm so sorry if I've already missed this bit of the conversation. I've had nurses coming in and out, and hospital time is so much fun. So I'll let you have the floor, Yasmin. But what do you find is kind of the most interesting new material that you're seeing with the current excavations and whatnot in Egypt?
Well, there are a lot of interesting discoveries, but all the different coffins that are being discovered is for me very fascinating, because I've recently been researching coffins. Like, I wasn't in the past, but I've published an article. I've co-published an article with Janice Cameron on a coffin set in Malawi, and I am becoming increasingly interested in coffins. So all these new discoveries, and I'm doing research on Amenhotep I, who was actually represented on Third Intermediate Period coffins. So all these coffins that are coming out, many of them are 21st dynasty, 22nd dynasty, and I'm dying to look at them and see if Amenhotep I is represented. So I'm very interested in these.
Oh, I would love to have a look at that article if somebody could send me it. Yeah, Curtis has my contact. That's very interesting, and I can't thank you enough for everything you've shared today. It's really has brightened my mood in this very boring, mundane environment. But I'm getting discharged today, so yay! So thank you so much.
I'm very glad we managed to make your day a little brighter.
I'm sorry I look like hell, but I figured I may as well be seen. Hell with it. This is the year where we lost it all anyway. So thank you so much, and Curtis, thank you for making this available, and keep up your enthusiasm and exuberance. I think that's what the young people need, and I think that we just need to, everybody needs to get out of their cell phones and have a look in the past and and see, there's so many unanswered questions as to what was going on back then. And that's what really draws me in, is just the extraordinary accomplishments of these people, and just amazing. What a legacy.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you. Hope you get better soon. I'm
I'll be
trying
better.
my best
We'll
to
talk
get people interested. So
Very good. Well, I'm gonna sign off now.
thank you, and you keep well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, soon.
Evan, I sent you a message in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll check that out.
Okay.
I have a question here from Uset. She would like to know, what is the most surprising thing that you have discovered in your work?
Most surprising thing. Well, it's a hard question to answer, but it's the surprise. Well, what surprised me is that the more I study, the less I know. That's one thing that surprised me in my work. And I think it's when I was an undergrad, I felt, oh, I know everything about ancient Egypt now. And then now I realize I don't know anything.
You know a lot more than a lot of people, so don't sell yourself short.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Osset, for asking the question.
If I think of something else that really surprised, there are many things surprised me, but I can't think of anything right now, but I'll let you know.
Sophia,
I feel the same way. The more I learn, the more I realize, oh, but wait, there's more. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
it's very true. We are constantly learning something new. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And in history, and when you're studying such an old civilization, you realize that, even the dates are not set. You have to, there are new chronologies where, you realize that, oh, the dates you learned in the past are not really accurate. And scholars are now more in favor of a different date for certain events. Even, what we learned at school, that Menes united Upper and Lower Egypt. We're not even sure, is Narmer Menes, or is it someone else, or, many things we're not sure about. Things that you studied as facts are not even certain, are debatable.
Exactly. I saw something the other day. Someone was examining what we believe to be Akhenaten's skeleton. And this lady was saying, oh, but the shoulders are not fused properly. So this guy is like not even 25. And I was very shocked.
That's what's also fascinating about Egyptology, is that you can't work alone. It's a very multidisciplinary field, because I feel like there's a lot of room to, exactly, when you have to work with physicians, you have to work with engineers. Like when people come up to me and ask me, so how do you think the pyramids were built? I study different theories, but I'm not an engineer. I can't really tell you which theory is more plausible in terms of, in engineering, because I'm not an engineer. So I would need to work with an engineer to decide. So the ancient Egyptian medicine, you work with, so it's a very multidisciplinary field.
Exactly. We can't know everything. It's 5,000 years of history.
Yeah.
Hi, Dana. Oh, I thought Dana had a question there. Sorry. Have we lost? Where is everybody going?
I'm back.
There.
I'm back. I don't know what happened.
Sorry, I thought Dana was going to ask a question, but she just said hi.
Hi.
From Sophia, thank you so much, Yasmin and Curtis, for a brilliant interview. I have to join another Zoom, so I have to say goodbye. Bye, Sophia.
Bye, Sophia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. So I think we'll take one more question from the audience. Who's got a question? Have
Well,
we?
I know I've already asked one, but I have another.
Okay.
What is your next big project? Are you be writing? Are you going to be exploring? Doing more research? What's the next big project for you?
Well, right now I'm working with 4 other authors on a book about how how modern Egyptians perceive their ancient past. So that's what I'm working on right now. And yeah, I'm doing some research. After that, I'm continuing with my research on Amenhotep I on 21st dynasty and 22nd dynasty coffins.
Okay, that's a lot. Yeah. I don't know how you decide on like which area, they're all so fascinating, then how you decide, which dynasty to focus on for a little while, or which person to kind of learn more about, because there's so much and it's all so fascinating. And then you get kind of pulled into these little rabbit holes and you follow those, and then you realize that you're 3 dynasties back now and what's happening. So yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a fascinating book project too. So be looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yasmin, what's your favorite temple?
Well, I love Medina Tabu.
It's beautiful.
Because as a student, I went there with Dr. Kent Weeks at night, and it was just breathtaking.
Oh, wow. I have not been there at night.
It was just incredible. It was so peaceful and so, I don't know, spiritual somehow.
Yeah. I'm desperately trying to get back as soon as I can. There's a couple temples that I haven't visited, a couple temples I want to take pictures of that are not very well documented. So I will make sure to go there at night as well on my next trip.
Yeah.
So do we have, let's see if there's one more question from the audience. No, I don't think so. Okay, great. So anyway, I would like to thank you, Yasmin, for your time talking to us today. I really, really appreciate it. It was such an honor talking to you.
Thank you so much, Curtis. It was a pleasure, really.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And I hope to see you in Egypt soon.
Yes, please do let me know when you decide to come.
I will. I will need all the advice I can about how things work at the moment. So
great. I'd be happy to give you advice.
Shukran.
Have one.
Thank you very much.
My Arabic is like, I know this much Arabic. So anyway, Yasmin, you keep well. Keep watching your football. I hope you guys keep winning.
I hope so too.
Yes. Wishing you all the best and keep safe to you and your family. And we will chat soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Gil. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you guys soon.
Everybody stay safe and
Bye-bye.
well.
Bye. Bye, Kevin. Keep well.
On Facebook.
Bye. Thank you so much.
I've got your
Thank you.
message here, Marissa. I will read it now.
Oh no, yeah, and I sent you a reply back to your Instagram message too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Oh, I can't stand wearing this in the house.
Chat soon. Bye, everyone. Bye, Yasmin.
Bye. Bye-bye.